All right, Tom, you had the great opener against Commerce and then disappointing not able to get to play the week. Just kind of walk us through the week.
Yeah, we were getting ready for Fort Smith, and we were probably about an hour or 45 minutes from Fort Smith, Arkansas, when we got the news that they were not able to play. Unfortunate. So we had a practice over there, had a really good practice, grabbed a meal, stayed overnight, and drove home. So it was tough. We searched for games. We thought we maybe had a game, but just never could get it together. And there was nobody in the country that we could have played. Otherwise, we would have went, because we were desperate. Not desperate. Yeah, we were desperate to play. We really wanted to play, and we would have played anybody.
Just talk about the Commerce game. I mean, you guys defensively really forced 25 turnovers. Quay and JoJo combined for 51 points. What were some of the positives and some of the negatives that you took away from that game?
Yeah, positives I think of that game is we got to play. I give Commerce a lot of credit for coming over and playing. They were just getting out of quarantine, and they didn't really have great practices. I know before they came over they looked a little bit rusty, and we looked pretty good, I thought. I thought we turned them over, like you said, Tyson, but we also had some turnovers that are uncharacteristic or end of the season turnovers that you just can't have. We had some moving screens, we had some travel violations, we were trying to do a little bit too much once in a while. So I think maybe just a little bit of, hey, we really want to play, and maybe that's the reason why we had some turnovers, but we can't do that. But when you beat a team by 30, that's a pretty good night. You score 100 points, so we were really happy with that. We had a good week of practice. We were done with finals. We were ready to go, and then it was unfortunate that Fort Smith couldn't play. So we're trying to reschedule that game, and we'll try to figure that out. We've got some dates. It's just up to them when they want to do that, but hopefully we get that rescheduled here within the next day or two.
Tom, the challenge, you've had a ton of practices in one game, so I would think the challenge, one challenge would be keeping the guys focused and interested. You know what I mean? Is it or not?
It isn't. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it is definitely got to keep that interest, but the interest is right now, if we get this game with Fort Smith rescheduled, we could possibly have 10 games in 16 days. Okay? 10 games in 16 days. You better have a focus and be ready to go for those 10 days, for those 16 days, because that's almost half your season right now, playing 22 conference games, hopefully this year, or 22 games, 20 conference games. So you've got to be ready to go, and we talk about that all the time. Our guys, we sent them home, and a couple are still here. A couple didn't want to go home. They want to play. They want to be ready to go. But we'll take a few days off. I'm guessing some will probably come back a little bit early. We were I thought we're clicking pretty well. We had all our guys back from COVID. Knock on wood, there's still a couple that haven't got it. So we could lose some players. You just never know. But even if we have 7 players, we're going to play. And if we don't have a coaching staff, we're still going to play. That was at the direction of our athletic director, Michael McBroom. It's not the same for other schools. They get to choose what they want to do. So it's a little bit tougher here at WT. The standards are a little bit higher, but I think that's one of the reasons our guys chose WT. They want to have that challenge. And so we've got to be ready to go night in and night out, and you just never know if you're going to play or not. And if you do, great, be ready to go. If you don't, well, we'll get ready for the next one.
And the next one, it was, I guess, initially, or maybe still is Permian Basin on, January 16th?
DBU.
Dallas Baptist.
Dallas
I believe
Baptist.
it's the 7th to 8th or 8th
Okay.
or 9th. And we're trying to schedule a game maybe on the 1st and 2nd or even the 31st and 1st, depending on who we can find. I think a lot of teams are going to start scrambling to find games because everybody's going to get backlogged in January and February. And so you want to try to play as soon as possible and get games in. And it doesn't really even matter who you're playing or where you're playing. You need to get games in. And it's a season that is forgiven, and so it doesn't count against your eligibility. And coaches, if you're doing the right thing, you just want to play games and have the kids have a great experience. And I think that's really important for our team and other teams is to try to get back to some kind of normalcy, and hopefully we can do that with the vaccine coming out. And there's optimism, and hopefully everybody stays healthy over Christmas, and we get to play the first and second, and definitely the 7th and 8th against DBU.
So you talked a lot about Quay and JoJo and their leadership. That's one thing you wanted them to improve on. How do you think they did that in the opening game and maybe this weekend with some of the guys maybe just being frustrated for not playing?
Well, I think the opening weekend, I thought those guys played really well. JoJo got fouled right away on that 3 and knocks down 3 free throws. That's hard to do. And Quay scored a lot of points. Didn't play a ton of minutes. Same with JoJo. Same with Jonell. But they all shared the ball. They weren't just monopolizing the basketball. They weren't just pounding it in place. They were cutting, moving, and they played really well. I think our whole team played really well, and those 3 guys played really, really well. And then I think where they really shined, and this is Jonell, Quay, JoJo, and some of the rest of the guys. Hugo even, for being a newer player, had a great practice on Friday night, the night before we were going to play Fort Smith, and those guys really went after each other, and we had a great practice, and that shows leadership right there. That shows how hungry they are to play, and they want to play. And so I give those guys a lot of credit, because they could have just packed it in, we could have just shot around and went back to the hotel and left, but they were ready to go, and that shows me a lot about their character and who they are.
You talked about, obviously there's that worry of not getting enough games in for this season, but you also talk about how you have all those games scheduled for that short time span. As a coach, does it worry you as far as fatigue goes for your players, both mentally and physically?
Definitely. The fatigue can be a factor. It's going to be a factor for all teams, but, you just never know. One team could be, have a week off and then play a couple on the weekend, where the other team, could play on Tuesday and Wednesday and then have to turn around and play Friday, Saturday. So, yeah, it's going to be different. You're going to have to really try to, balance some minutes a little bit, but you got to go out and try to win every game that you can. And that's, I think, the most important thing is we're not going to save anybody because we play later in the week. We're going to go after it. And the rest of the guys, it doesn't matter. We have 13 players on our team right now. All 13 guys better be ready to go. And that's any given night. Any given Sunday. I think that's Monday.
Friday's Christmas, and Santa's coming besides a miracle Vikings victory. What else you rooting for? Hope he brings you.
What does Santa bring me? How about some basketball games? I'd love to get that phone call, hey, Coach, we're looking for games. I haven't got one of those as of yet, and I'm scrambling to find them. It's just tough because the MIAA, they're a closed conference, so they can't schedule games outside. The RMAC can't leave Colorado. They're really putting them on lockdown right now. The Heartland, which is combined now with the LSC to have just the LSC. We have a weekend off. Our first weekend back, we're off. Everybody in our league plays. And in 2 weeks, there's 4 or 5 teams that don't play. And so those weekends are open where those teams can play each other. And so the scheduling gods weren't real kind to us in that regard. So it's going to be tough for us to find games. We're going to end up playing 4 or 5 games in a week. And it's going to be really tough. And if our guys aren't physically and mentally ready to go, it'll be, it could get tough to get into that regional, tough to get into the conference tournament. You have to have 11 conference games to get into the conference tournament. And if we don't have that, we don't get to play in the conference tournament. So, you got to play all your scheduled games. Hopefully the other teams can avoid the COVID, and then you got to pick up games wherever you can. And so it's going to be an interesting year. I don't have a lot to tell you right now, but it should be a lot of fun January and February.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you rate Torian Harris's dunk?
That little week one-hander, that was all right. I think the after celebration was a little better than the actual dunk. But, I remember Coach Gove had a dunk like that in college, and he didn't celebrate that much. But, it was great. No, it was really good. Torian had one. I'll tell you, Torian had one in practice on Friday night. That was probably even better. And, it's getting to a point where now we're not stopping and, making a big deal out of it. It's kind of just, it happens, okay, that's great, check the ball, let's go. And so, it's very fun. He was going to redshirt this year. And with the COVID and being able to play, he got a chance to get out there and play. So it's great for him. I know he's really excited about that. He does a great job for us in practice, works hard, and he actually is picking things up very quickly. So, he must have been coached well, or he just picks, or he's natural. He's got to get a little bit bigger and stronger. He's not real big, but he's wiry and he's tough, and he can get up a little bit. So it was good.